Welcome everybody. Lava lamp. Yep, what's going on? Oh, better turn on my light. Oh, look at this mess I made. I really have to clean this up. That's from working the other day. Okay, so we are getting into this stuff right here, the lubricants and the transmission and rear end and all that fun stuff. Because, because I got a 4-speed and a 9-inch in there, and that's what we're doing. So I'll see you in just a second. Are you ready? So let me move this out of the way before I don't trip on it and these headers. Okay. This here is 85 W140. Here's the deal. In no way, shape, or form is this the number for viscosity, the same chart as motor oil viscosity numbers. 90 weight is not the same thickness, not the same viscous as like 90 weight motor oil, if you can find such a thing as 90 weight motor oil. So like straight 90 weight gear oil is probably close to 40 weight motor oil, if you look at the chart and the viscous, whatever, viscosity. 50 weight motor oil is thicker than 90, so somewhere in there. The reason I want to make this is because this car has a Muncie 4-speed and a 9-inch with a clutch style posi. And with a clutch style posi, you need to run some sort of friction modifier, or there's synthetic or these high performance like Lucas or whatever that has it has a modifier in it, and you don't necessarily have to add it. Okay. Transmissions or differentials first? Let's do transmissions first. 3 types of manual transmissions. You have a sliding mesh transmission, a constant mesh transmission, which has been referred to as a crash box, which doesn't have synchronizers. Then you have a synchro mesh transmission, which is a combination of a crash box with an added synchronizer to help shifting more easy and less damage. Like a Jericho is a non-synchronized transmission, which would be like a crash box, and those you rip in. So let's go back. The sliding mesh. So sliding mesh basically has your input shaft, a gear, another gear, the cluster shaft, and a series of gears on a splined shaft. And you actually slid the gear to engage with the other gear. I'll put a picture of one up, like just a quick diagram right here. And that is, that's how they did it. In the old days, that's where double clutching came from. So what you would do is you would match engine speed up and down to try and match the gear speeds of what it was going to be, engine RPM to the drive shaft speed, so you could match the 2 gears. So you'd push the clutch in, and then you'd rev it and push the clutch again to slide it. You couldn't just go directly in because there was no way to connect the 2 gears together in a grouping. They actually just slid over each other. The crash box, or a constant mesh transmission, uses what's called dogs, a dog style clutch. So this gear and this gear, you engage a sliding collar that has a dog in it, and it will engage the dogs on this just bang it in there into this one, or it'll bang into this gear on this one with a sliding collar. And the gears the gears didn't move anymore. The gears stayed constantly meshed. All of them meshed together. The input shaft and the next cluster shaft, like all the gears, you just slid in and powered which one by sliding the collar. Even synchro mesh transmissions use a dog style, but they some didn't have a synchro for first, a non-synchroed first. You've heard that before. A synchronizer is basically, there's a collar that has a spline in it, and it slides over a ring that also slides, it has teeth on it that also slides over teeth on the gear, and it kind of helps time it because it also matches another spline. So the collar slides over both, and the synchronizer is kind of floats in there, and it just helps time it. The synchronizer is usually made out of like bronze or something, they call them brass or whatever, but they're bronze. And so that got developed more and more. In fact, that was the development, I think, I don't want to say the 20s, but I don't think they had them really in the 20s. The synchro mesh transmissions were made to be not so noisy, because it's really noisy shifting a sliding mesh or a crash box. And there's more damage to the teeth and the connection components by banging them in there on missed shifts or whatever. Constant mesh stuff made it a little easier and less noisy gear changes. Now let's get into the ratings. You've heard GL4 and GL5. So GL is just gear lube. And it started with GL1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's a 6, and then there's an MT1, which those are all, each rating is similar to like a brake fluid rating. You have .3, .4, .5. .3 would be like, and .4 is the higher temperature and pressure, which is the same thing for GL4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So GL2 and 3 don't exist anymore. 1 is still around, 2 and 3 is not. 4 is around and 5 is around, and each one of them is intended for higher pressure. And then there's some side loading and some impact, and it has to have like gear impact. And so what you need to look for is, here's the deal. GL5 has additives in it. They all have additives. The GL5 has additives in it that are high, they're sulfur. And sulfur chemically, when it's heated up, reacts to yellow metals. It reacts to yellow metals immediately because they're not steel. And it corrodes them. Over time, it'll pit them. And really high, and every 10 degrees Celsius roughly, the chain reaction doubles, I think, the speed at rate. I'd have to go back and like really research it, but it doesn't mean anything to you guys. What I'm saying is, if you're running a Muncie and you're running this 90 weight in it, which it basically says non-synchronized manual transmissions. We have synchronized manual transmissions, kids. Our Muncies and our Saginaw's and our Super T10s are synchronized. They do make a fluid called synchromesh, but it's basically automatic transmission fluid. It slips off real fast. The gears does stuff, and your manual transmission will be noisy if you use a thinner fluid. The old style manual, it is made for like a T5 and the newer style gearboxes where you have tighter tolerances and they run. The gear shapes are different. The bevels on the teeth are different, and you can run a hydraulic oil or automatic transmission fluid in them, like Dextron 3 basically. You can run that in this, and that doesn't attack synchros. The sulfur in these, there's two types of sulfur. There's active and inactive. The active stuff, when it gets hot, will like start pitting immediately and will attack the yellow metal in your tranny. The non-active won't actually. So it will discolor it when it gets high temperature, but we're talking like 800 degrees roughly. And if your manual transmission's getting 800 degrees, you have a problem. You do not want to run synthetic gear oil in your Muncie because it's not machined for a front seal. And the molecules compared to dyno oil are different in synthetic, and they're more consistent, and it will find a way out of old style seals. It just does. GL5 handles higher pressure, side load pressure, versus GL4 doesn't. GL4 is what is recommended for Muncie 4-speeds. You can still buy it. Napa sells it under Stay Lube, and the factory service manuals will say SAE basically 80 or 90, and that is what you're looking for, and that's what the Stay Lube 80, 90, 85, 90, whatever. It's standard. It's just GL4. The funny part is that all manufacturers will say this is good for, and meets API, which is American? No. API is basically the Petroleum Institute, but I forget what the A stands for. Like the authority, I don't remember. API. Recommends GL4. This surpasses, GL5 surpasses the GL4 stuff, and they're right, it does. And they use it basically in front and rear axles. Like your differential, where you have a high point gear where basically your pinion is here or your pinion is here and it's offset down low from your ring gear, there's some gear side, curved gear, some side loading issues where you got a lot more pressure in there than you do in your manual transmission. So you want to run this in your differential because it's high temperature, higher severe impact and gear load, side load. So that's where you would run GL5 is in front and rear different manual or front and rear differentials. And that brings us to the friction modifier. You want the friction modifier in your clutch style positive traction, only the clutches, because it will reduce chatter. And chatter is basically as you're turning a corner and power is applied, you will get some clutches sticking and chatter as you go around a corner because the springs and the cones are forcing pressure out on the clutch plates to compress them, and they will chatter. The friction modifier makes them slippery, so they can still bind and hold, but they won't stick and chatter. If you do not run this, it will eat up your clutches. It'll get hot and eat your clutches up. And you'll go back through and rebuild them again. Let's see. If you're racing your manual transmission car, like say you're going to go drag racing it, so different oils are different viscosity levels, which means they are thin or thick. And with different temperatures, they thin out and they move faster, or they'll move faster. Like a thick one will move slower than a thin one. So like say 520 motor oil. That in a manual transmission will climb up the gear and climb right off and no problem, hardly any windage. And it'll get the job done, although you'll hear some noise. Automatic transmission fluid, the same thing. 8590, this regular stuff with the 85140 with the regular stuff with the non-gear climbing like Lucas has, will climb up and fall off. There's a guy that did a test of how long it takes for 3 ounces of fluid, of all these different fluids, to run into a beaker. And what he was looking for was what to get the best speed from. So what you don't want is, it robs horsepower. If you have an oil climbing like Lucas, you've seen the little gears in the auto parts store where it shows regular motor oil and it just barely climbs up the gears, coats them barely. Then you have the Lucas one where you barely turn it, just like makes like a film all the way around, and I go, oh man, that sounds pretty good. That keeps the lubricant on the gears. It does. It keeps them quiet. It keeps them lubricated. The problem is it causes windage, and windage robs horsepower because the gear is having to throw the weight of the extra oil off to the side as it's spinning with speed, and that robs horsepower. So if you're racing, you want to run the thinnest oil possible that still will get down into the needle bearings and still do its job. It'll stay on the gear to lube where the gears mesh, but it'll fall off fast enough. It'll also get into the bearings. Like I said, a thick oil it may get on the gears, but it may not get down into the bearings. It may not lubricate the shafts and the shifting components until the oil gets really hot. But that's it in a nutshell, kids. I bought this first, 4 quarts of this first, and I started thinking, I've done it. I've thrown this in and run it for years in Muncie's and never had issues. But I thought for this one, it was a perfect opportunity for me to, I guess, not really educate, but educate myself. So I bought this, took 2 back, and I bought this because this says excellent for race cars and trucks and RVs and high-powered gear sets in heavy-duty situations where plain gear oil just isn't enough. Stops whiny and noisy differentials. Excellent for use in limited slip. You don't need an additive with this. But this climbs, but it also has sulfur in it. It is GL5. This is GL5. But that's where it's at. So I'm going to actually get this Stay Lube, and I'll put the picture of it up. I'm going to get that from Napa tomorrow and put in this transmission because it is GL4 and non-sulfur, which will protect my synchronizer. I was going to go under there and dump it in there, but you guys have all put fluid in your rear ends before. It's hot today. Hi. I changed my mind. I'm actually going to force you guys to watch me put the oil in this. Hold on, you got to come out here. Let me see what that looks like. If I like it, you guys will like it. Need to get a light for you guys. Hold on, hold please. Hold on a second. Oh, magnet light. Ruby, 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 Soho. Ruby, 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 Soho. Oh, that's an Allen wrench. Oh, fail again. Fail. Oh, fail. Fail, 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 fail. America. Ruby, 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 Soho. This is not the right size. But it is. I was wrong. Okay. Here we go. You guys ready to watch this? Oh, here we go. Pull out said plug. Open bottle of fluid. Peel off the top, which never comes off. Oh, it did on this one. Can't say never. Clip it on an angle. Bam. Oh, it's gone. And stuff it in. Put this rag here so I can catch it all. That's really coming out. Well, I know it's not full. Wait. Oh, it barely has any room in there. Well, that's why. Okay, so I gotta aim it forward. Well, you guys are gonna get to see the bottom side of this 9-inch. I'm gonna cut this cap much, much closer to the edge. It'll take longer, but I can get it in there and I can actually aim it. Let's get that on that angle. There. There we go. That's way better. That's more better. We're gonna go till it just starts to come out right here. That's how I know it's full. There's another trick. You stick your pinky in, and you go down. Stick it in the hole and you go down. If it touches the tip of your pinky, it's full. This one, unfortunately, has a part of the case right here, and it only has a small hole. I can't stick my finger in far enough to check. Ooh, there it goes. That's it for sure right there. Yep, that's it. Now it's full. Now it's full. See that? Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. Full. Your finger in. Now it comes oil. That's full. That's how you do it. Alright. Next, rag here in case it decides it wants to drip. Because I don't know if this rear end leaks or not. It shouldn't. I resealed it, but that doesn't mean anything. Alright, so what did we learn today, kids? Did you guys learn how to check a differential, check fluid? Should we sum it up? Let's sum it up. Alright, here's the sum up. Gear oils, not all are the same. GL5, the GL rating is gear lube. The levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are temperature range and pressure range. And then they add, for extreme pressure, they add in additives, which are chemically broken down in the whatever they make your, if it's a synthetic or if it's, gear oil, which is dunno or whatever. It's they add. So GL5 has sulfur in it, and some is inactive and some is active. Some will attack your yellow metals and some won't. You just have to research the manufacturer's ingredients to see if it is active or inactive. But non-synchro mesh transmissions use GL4, the old Muncies. The new style stuff, when they start getting into like, Tremex and Getrags and stuff like that, where they like about the 80s, early 80s, about when they're getting into 5 speeds or those small, really thin like um, import stuff, those things use automatic transmission fluid or synchromesh fluid. GM has synchromesh fluid. It's high pressure, thin, real thin, and it's made for those transmissions. Your Muncie will be, if you get Pennzoil synchromesh or you get Delco synchromesh or something like that, your Muncie or Saginaw or T10 or whatever will be noisy. Your AA33 will be noisy. Anything with any of our old 4-speeds will be noisy. Top loader, all of it. Differential additive is for to help. It's the friction modifiers to make it for you don't have friction. It makes it slippery. And I have another thing coming in the mail, and I'll show you about it. Remember I talked to you guys about ER, energy release? Well, my buddy Jay sent me some. So as soon as that gets here, we'll talk more about that, and I'll show you how much I'm going to put in and where I'm going to put it. Man, today's just one of those days. I'll see you guys later. Surfing was so good, I just blew my mind.